I'm Kathleen Murphy, and welcome to Murf+E Unfiltered Zero BS Biz Talk. I'm here today with my co-host, Eliot Grossman. How are you, Eliot?
Hey, Murph, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Always good to see you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yes.
Likewise. So today's topic is one that I gave a lot of thought to when I was putting this particular article together, and it's called Choosing Words That Matter. And the overview for this particular one is, are you aware of the impact that words you are choosing to others can convey, may or may not be having the intended outcome that you would desire them to have? I think that oftentimes people will use words sometimes as a filler when they're either nervous and just not necessarily be cognizant about the words that they're choosing, which can be obviously problematic in a lot of ways, but it can also work in your favor, particularly when you're trying to inspire people. And even such a small word such as yes, saying yes to somebody, can be so impactful, as I know that you're aware of that. Timing of the words that you choose also is critical. We've all experienced lots of instances where the timing of what we've heard from another person may not necessarily have been the best timing. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's the perfect timing, in fact. And then I'm sure there are times that both of us have been in a situation where potentially we regretted the word that we chose to say at that time, and we wish that maybe we could have retracted that somehow, but there wasn't really a do-over in that case. And then finally, cobbling together the right words may seem like it's really easy, particularly when you are watching pros in action and they're just really smooth with their delivery of whatever it is that they're saying. But we know that that's not the case. So what about you? Have you ever regretted saying a word or a statement to somebody at some point in your life?
Oh, shoot, Murph, I probably did that 5 times already today. That's the truth. And
Earlier, as
do,
a matter
right?
of fact,
yes,
right?
Of course.
Sure.
You know, I was thinking about this. So you think about words. Now we all have our cell phones. We got things going, and we talk about all the filters. Like, wow,
Yes.
you look so young. Well, yeah, there's 3 filters on, or things like that. With words, it's different. And certainly, I always kind of bring things back to the sales world.
Yes.
And in my situation, saying yes or certain words, they mean a whole lot more. And certainly customers saying yes or people saying yes to us, what does it really mean? So me saying yes to somebody on my team could mean something because I may have a million things going in my brain. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And then 2 weeks later, they say, well, don't you remember you said yes?
Right.
And I say, well, crap, no, I don't remember. And they'll bring me back and always remind me, and then I have to backtrack and go back and do something that I probably would have said, let's think about it, let's discuss it more, things of that matter. So, yeah, I mean, I think we all do it in everyday personal life and work.
And so has there ever been a circumstance beyond what you just described where, in fact, you thought, oh gosh, if I could have a do-over on this, I really wish that I could go back and rephrase what it was that I said, or did you have that opportunity, and like you were just suggesting, where you thought about it after the fact, where you just maybe gave somebody a quick yes?
Yeah, of course, right. I mean,
what happened?
Yeah, so what happens is then you have to go back, as I just said, and you have to go back and dig yourself out, dig the company out, make the situation better for yourself, for your rep, for your team, for the company.
Do you own up to that? Do you say,
yeah, you have to, right? If you don't own up to, you know what, I probably spoke out of place. I apologize, I was out of line. And the sooner you realize it, the better off you are. And I'm not talking about sending a text. I'm talking about calling somebody, seeing if you can get in front of them, get on a Zoom call, whatever it may be, whether it's your rep, call them in your office, or somebody else. You got to own up to it, and you have to own up to it quickly, because if not, it's just going to fester. And then you're in, it costs a whole lot more than that. Relationships, business, etc. What about you? I'm sure.
Yeah, there was a time that I said yes where I hesitated maybe for a nanosecond, because I thought the request from somebody was, can you help? And when I heard the word help, and then it was my sister that they were talking about, and it was going to be a really challenging potential scenario where it was going to require me to take a really large amount of time and effort to work with the person in terms of helping them, but I knew that it was the right thing to do, so that I knew that in that situation that yes was really the only thing that I could say at that moment in time. And I do not regret having said yes, because in fact, I saw a person really come into their own and evolve and go from a place which was really being in quite despair to being in a place of flourishing and really thriving and gaining their confidence back. And so to see that transformation in such a short period of time was really confirming that yes was the right word to say at that time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of with that comes with age. We talk about, or experience. I hate to say age. With experience comes wisdom, and you often know what you're getting into. Yes mean if we act too quickly, you know what you're getting into. You didn't let them say sister, but ultimately you got through it, put somebody in a better situation, made you feel better, and everything worked out well.
Exactly.
But I know with our wisdom and experience, I'm sure you put yourself in a situation where it didn't. Can you recall anything? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but can you recall anything? Because in sales, it's different. In marketing, you can pull things back and do different things, and in the business that you're in now, you're so buttoned up that it's different. But so it may not, you probably don't remember because everything gets run through the mill a number of times.
Well, sure, there have been times that I recall when perhaps I didn't choose the right statement or the right timing, or didn't talk to the right person perhaps to deliver a message.
Yeah.
And I really regretted that. So I go back to those times and think about, oh gosh, all right, slow down and go into being more thoughtful about making sure that doesn't happen again. Now, none of us are perfect, so of course we're going to run into situations like that from time to time. But I was thinking about also a time when choosing the right words was something that I was incredibly challenged with in terms of the outcome for how really important my words were going to be at that moment in time for the situation that it was in.
Yeah.
And it was when I was working with one of my sports teams, and I was asked to give a pep talk at halftime when they were down, I believe they were down 4 or 5 points, which is a lot, okay? And so they were thinking, there's no way that we're going to come back from this. So I thought, okay, what am I possibly going to say to this group to try to inspire them to come back when they're thinking, we can't come back from this. So I very carefully chose the words that I was saying to this group to do my best to inspire and motivate them. And there was a happy ending to the story because they did end up coming back, surging past the team and winning. And it was the first time that they had won and beaten that team in probably close to a decade. So it was really meaningful. But I was surprised that I got chosen to deliver that sort of halftime pep talk, because I thought for sure the coach wanted to, but he felt that he just wasn't being listened to. So he said he needed to have it come from a different voice and different perspective.
Right.
So, and sometimes I'm sure as parents, right, we know that we've said to another person sometimes, like, look, I've said this to this person 50 times before. They're not listening to me. Can you just say the same thing? Because I know that they'll listen to you.
Well, that's always the case of hearing just a different voice.
Right.
A different voice means something different. As a parent, coach, you got to let somebody else step in. Yes means something different, or no means something different coming from somebody else.
Absolutely. There was a time also that I this is like such a cringe moment, especially, and you'll appreciate this being a sales.
Oh, because I'm cringe-worthy. Yeah. Thank you.
No.
Hey, Eliot, you'll appreciate
In terms of,
cringes.
I'm
All right.
sure you've sat through a situation before where the leader, instead of trying to act like a person that's motivating you, is in fact doing the exact opposite. They are making you feel as if there's no possibility of success, and they in fact themselves are not really being a leader, but they think for some reason that whatever it is that they're saying to you is going to change the outcome of a bad situation. And I've been in that situation a number of times and thought to myself, oh my gosh, this person is doing so much damage right now.
More damage, and more often than you can ever imagine, right? I think it goes back to when you're choosing words, less is more. And it absolutely is in those cases. We've sat through those meetings on the sales side. We've sat through those things.
Where you get beat up verbally.
And it's just like, okay, either you don't understand what we're up against.
No.
Or you don't care to understand and listen carefully.
Exactly. So
anyway.
what I think is remarkable is the fact that people don't think about the unintended consequences potentially of the words that they're choosing.
Right.
And in that case, a perfect example of the leader beating up the sales team because they missed their number and thinking that yelling at them and telling them that they were terrible, which they didn't need to be told, that was going to have a different outcome.
Yeah, right.
And an outcome perhaps that they
Yeah, I
thought
can tell
they
you,
would have.
if we miss our number, and knock on wood, we haven't lately, but if a team misses their number, they are well aware of it.
Yes, they are.
We don't need you.
Nobody needs to
I don't need
remind
you
them.
to tell me how much I suck. I'm aware of how much I suck.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Well, I have some tips in terms of helping people to think about maybe ways that they can go about choosing words that matter. And the first one is to consider words that inspire you. Perhaps write them down and then begin practicing using them, and then sprinkling them into the sentences based on a one-on-one basis conversation with people that you regularly interact with, so that you can kind of get some practice with that. And then do some research, listen and read to others who are in fact inspirational as leaders and speakers. Hear what they have to say. Pay attention to how they're delivering the message, etc., and what words that they're choosing. And then pay closer attention during conversations to appreciate that you're having, in fact, a positive impact on the people that you're intending to deliver your message to, because you may think that what you're saying is working, but you may not be reading the body language, which is telling you exactly the opposite of that. And then words can be like weapons. We know that, unfortunately, and have unintended negative consequences, which we talked about already. But so to make sure, even more importantly so, that you are not choosing words that are weapons and causing harm, and using words to be punitive, because I just think that accomplishes nothing from my perspective. What about you? Do you have some suggestions in terms of tips that?
Yeah, I think it's fairly simple, right? And I always say these things when we're doing these shows, and I always say, well, it's fairly simple, right? It's common sense.
But we know that there isn't a school for common sense.
That is very true. People always say, well, just be honest. Honesty is the best policy. Of course, honesty is the best policy, right? Nothing good comes out of lying, I guess. But for me, it's all about thinking. Just think. You talked about that nanosecond.
Yes.
If I had done a little more thinking back when I was a newer manager, it probably would have changed the outcome of how the teams worked, how they reacted. And as I became a little more seasoned, a little more experienced, I would, instead of just reacting, right? Because human nature is just to react.
Right.
And I now think a little bit more. And I'm thinking whether my head's going in one direction on one side and my brain's rolling around. I try to think before I answer. And we talked about being less is more. Sometimes let me think about it, or just think clearly before you speak. We don't have filters when we speak.
Or having
right?
a dramatic pause. And practicing a dramatic pause seems really awkward when you're doing it, but just taking a moment and not saying something to slow things down and to be able to then say what it is that you think is going to be impactful can make such a difference. It's hard to do that, though. I remember somebody giving me that piece of advice and thinking, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to have to.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? And most times when we're pitching something on the sales side and we're working together, say on a bigger deal, and somebody says, well, this is what I'm paying, this is what our expectations are, this is where we need to be. Can you beat this, and will you service it the same way? And we want to say, yes, right? Because what do? We go back to yes, because we're in the sales business of closing deals and making money. But before we do that, we have to think about it. And it's okay to take that dramatic pause, or to sit there and say, you know what, Kathy, thank you so much. That's great. I appreciate the confidence you have in us as a team and as a company. But can I get back to you a little later on today? I just want to make sure we're all in the same ballpark and that we can meet your expectations, or more importantly, exceed your expectations. Before jumping into that one word of yes, gets you into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Let's think about it. People say, yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks. Get back to me by the end of the day. Get back to us by tomorrow. We're not going to make a decision, or whatever it may be.
Absolutely. I have so much more respect for people when they take time to actually think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy concept.
I think it, I know, right? So here are a few more tips for people. Work on finding your communication style in your comfort zone when it comes time to conveying words to others. You don't have to imitate others' styles, as this will be hard to do, and it's likely not your natural communication style, so really pay attention to that. And then always think about what will be the intended goal of your communication in terms of what you're trying to convey, as sometimes the words that you choose are going to have different purposes, and so be really careful there. And then factor in making sure that your body language is in alignment with what your words are expressing. And then lastly, appreciate and be highly responsible for the words that you choose to express to others, as they might have a lifelong impact on them. And we certainly know that. And I don't know if you've been in a situation where you've had somebody come back to you years later, days later, weeks later, whatever, hours later, and say, what you said to me had an impact. Hopefully it was a positive impact. Can you give me an example, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to always on the coaching side. The thing that's most important when you're a coach, and you're a coach now.
Yes.
Coaching sports, coaching whatever it may be, there's nothing more gratifying than the words that you used or your actions when you were with these folks, with these teams, with whatever it may be, for them to come back. Yeah, of course, corporate or sports, to come back and say, what you said kind of resonated with me. And I didn't think about it as much when we were together as a team, but I've been, 3 companies later, or 3 seasons later, or I'm playing in college now, and what you said, not your actions of screaming and yelling or coaching and trying, but your actions and some of the things that you said maybe at halftime, or maybe just gathering the team around, that were important to me. And that, to me, is kind of the where your words become impactful, as we were talking about, and choosing those words.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to use the word course correct, because sometimes we have to course correct after having said something that we couldn't potentially retract.
Let me give you a quick example of course correction, because I read it earlier. So back in my coaching career, I remember we were at halftime coaching, and I was so mad at the team. We had worked so hard, and we were so much better than this other team, and we were getting hammered at halftime. It's a basketball game. And I remember saying in the locker room, you guys suck. And I couldn't take it back. And I had to course correct, and of course we came back out in the second half and won the game. But those words, what I said to those guys, were damaging. And I had to backtrack for the rest of the season and try to gain there, because what it does is, damn it, you guys suck. Some people are not thick-skinned.
No.
And it does some serious damage to the people that aren't. Not only that, then it gets back to parents, and then it gets back to administrators, and you're dealing with us. It's no different on the corporate side, saying something like that to your team, which I probably have done numerous times in my managing career. So what about you? I mean, you've got those situations, course correct. Tell me about your course correction.
I think back to a time when I was managing a group of people, and we were put to a task that was really almost going to be impossible to pull off, just given the budget, the timing, the amount of people or lack of people that were put onto a project to pull it off. And I was just really not very happy with the CEO had told me, basically, you need to do this. I'm pulling rank. You don't have a choice. You have to make this happen. I thought to myself, wow, this is pretty incredible that this is something that I'm hearing. I'm not in the military. I never have been, and they're pulling rank on me? Okay.
Right.
And how is this going to play out, right? So I was really proud of myself, actually, for choosing the words that I did and to stick up for myself and say, I'm going to do my best, but I can't guarantee you that this is going to come out to your expectation level based on these circumstances that I'm dealing with. And you're putting me in a really difficult position. I don't appreciate that you're doing this, and I want you to know that. But under the circumstances, I will do whatever I can to try to get us to the place that we need to be. So fast forward to having then completed the project. And the next day I show up at work and I have this handwritten note on my desk. And it was from the CEO apologizing for pulling rank and basically telling me that I pulled off a miracle, that he didn't think that I could do it, but challenged me to do something that he knew I could probably do, but that it was going to put me in a really difficult place. But the apology, seeing it in writing, just meant so much to me, just because it validated me sticking up for myself and being upfront and having a really difficult conversation and choosing the right words without coming across as being hostile, which I felt like I was, but I had to sort of mask that. That was a really difficult time, but I felt that was one of the times that sticks out in my life, in my mind, in terms of how choosing the right words was critical at that period of time, and not something I felt comfortable doing perhaps before that point in time.
Right.
But having somebody push me and my back up against the wall to be in a position that was so
and sometimes
uncomfortable.
those moments just obviously make you better now. Now it's a different animal. If you were put in that situation now, you'd handle it maybe the same, maybe a little differently, and choose your words a little differently, but hope for the same outcome.
Right, because I now have practice. I now know that I can do that. So one thing that I think I've shared one other time with you and with the audience is that if somebody asks you or says something to you that is egregious, or that you don't have a response for that you think is going to be appropriate, the best thing that you can say to them is, why did you say that? Because it's going to buy you time in order to then either have them explain to you why they said what they said, or potentially apologize. And you just keep saying it until you feel satisfied that you're getting the response that they should have given you the first
you're a lot
time
nicer
out.
person than me.
But have you ever had to use
I'm sure.
a statement like that
Of
before?
course, because it's, we call it in the sales world, or even now, I would just call it dancing, right? Let's dance for a little bit,
Right.
until we could say, answering a question with a question, or a statement they made with a question, and ask that again. So as I talk about my right side, my left side of my brain working, while you know what you're going to say, you want to say, you have to let the other side catch up and be able to say it properly, so that we don't have to course correct over and over again. So.
Exactly. And I would say when I first began managing people was probably when I had to truly put choosing the right words that matter into practice, and I didn't have to do that earlier when I was an individual contributor. But I'd have to say that probably made me a better mother, in fact, because of all the practice that I had before I became a mother, managing other people.
Yeah, I wish, quite honestly, I wish I had course corrected a lot more, been different in how I chose my words when my kids were younger, and how I than what you know now, or your personality changes a little bit, or your filter makes you think a little more as you've gone through experiences in life. If I had known that, sure, wouldn't we be, I guess we'd all be better parents probably, and better in life, but part of those are all learning experiences.
Without a doubt. And so that basically draws us to the conclusion that I think that we've given people some good tips that can help them to choose words that matter. And I want to thank everybody for being here today, and thank you, Eliot, for another great show. Come back and see us next time on Murf+E Unfiltered Zero BS Biz Talk. Take care.